Yeah, for sure. I'm a professor of philosophy of science and ethics. I did my postdoctoral research at Harvard University, where I started a interdisciplinary field in which, as a philosopher, I went into the sciences of archaeology and anthropology to try to figure out how humans evolved, got their brains, reason the way they do. And then, of course, I did comparative analyses with other animals as well. So I worked a bit with David Pilbeam and Richard Wrangham, primatologists, to try to figure out what was going on in human evolution, how humans became conscious as we now are, and why we reason the way we do. And then, as a professor, my specialties basically grew into critical thinking. So I've written a few books. You can see a few of them around me here, some shameless self-promotion. I find critical thinking extremely important, but very poorly taught, if at all, in our education systems here in Canada and especially throughout the United States. It's not as though it's not wanted. It's just, my goodness, it's difficult to get things going in that direction, depending on who the government is, right? So, all that time, I was in the 90s, I was trying to convince our government to develop a large electronic brain, if you will, a supercomputer to help the Senate and to help scientists reason through problems better. We make telescopes to see farther, microscopes to see smaller. Why aren't we building bigger brains to help us kind of think through things? And so this developed into a model within information theory that I developed called the onion skin theory of knowledge. And this developed into basically the realization that at some point in my future, in our future, somebody was going to build this machine. All the politicians and university administrators thought it was a great idea, but not one of them would offer to give a penny to help build this thing, of course, and rightly so. These things are very expensive, but nonetheless, so I predicted this, this would happen at some point in the future, but I thought it'd be like 100 years. From then, lo and behold, no, it's happening today. So then I've shifted gears, and all of my energy now as a senior researcher with Convergence Analysis, an international organization devoted to the mitigation of AI risk, basically to educate, industry leaders, policymakers, but especially the public on what's coming our way very quickly in terms of artificial intelligence. And that leads us to this exact moment with you.
I'm observing sometimes students and they are interested in knowledge. Well, their reasons, why are they interested, you might ask. And well, most of the time, actually, they are interested in knowledge because it promises something. It says, okay, if you know stuff, you earn money, you'll have a good life, you know what's going on, you can make your decisions based on knowledge. And then I see the students of today, they are so eager to use AI because it takes their homework away. It seems like a shortcut, right? So I wonder what would be like a healthy way to deal with AI, and where's the danger of, especially like for young people, those are studying right now. Does it help them, or is it just causing more problems than helping?
With all new forms of technology, we have to figure out how are we going to work through what are called these socio-technical issues, right? So, kind of an older example, you might have experienced this. You're closer to my demographic. When the calculator was invented, I remember my parents saying, "Oh, it's going to ruin our kids for math. They're going to become idiots now. They're never going to have to learn their times tables. They're never going to, they're just going to rely on this thing." And then, the internet comes out, and then, the iPhones come out, and it's like, well, just ask Google, you know, and then who's used a paper map like in the last, 5 or 10 years, right? Map sales, right? If I were an investment advisor, I would say, don't put your money in map sales. They're not going to work.
Don't
So
even sell paper.
don't even sell paper anymore, right? We're a paperless society. Everything's digital now. So what happens is the technology gets developed, it flows through societies, then we adapt, and sometimes in a clunky kind of way, sometimes in an erratic kind of way, and sometimes smoothly. But there has to be an adaptation. And the same thing hopefully will happen with AI. But one of the biggest fears a lot of people are proposing now is, will it just make us stupid and lazy because we don't need to think anymore? If Sam Altman and the other tech bros racing ahead to get to AGI, or artificial general intelligence, and we have an app where literally it is our assistant and can do everything we want it to do, right? I need to do, this, and this within this time frame, make it happen, make it most cost effective, and conjoin it with all the other plans that I have going on, and it does it seamlessly. Why would we why would we want to figure that out on paper, and try to work through that? No, we are going to get lazier for sure. But what we can do is recognize that this is coming, right? We know that the tsunami is on the horizon. It looks like it's a far way, off, but it's traveling at 200 miles an hour and it's 100 feet tall. So, it's coming very, very, very quickly. Sorry for using imperialist terms. I'm next to the United States, so um, what we have to do is get ready and figure out how are we going to integrate that. Finally, school boards here in Ontario are telling students you can't bring your cell phones into class. You have to leave them in your locker because students were just constantly looking up at the teacher and then looking down there. I couldn't believe this, right? Like as a professor, I couldn't believe it. Like when I walk into a class, I don't care if you've got your computer up, I don't care if you've got your phone up. You're paying huge amounts of money to come here to hear what I have to say. You're adults. If you want to waste your time playing games or looking at porn or whatever you're going to use your tech devices for, that's your call. I'm going to keep lecturing no matter what. Just don't disturb this lecture, right? But in a high school, yeah, the kids don't have that kind of discipline, and they really need to turn off the technology. They need to focus on what's going on, unless and until you need that technology to help, say, with an assignment, to help with real world issues. Like, what would the average person do if they were confronted with a situation like this? Well, they'd go right to their phones. Okay. So only if that were a part of the learning exercise should we use it. And I think the same is true with AI. If we can integrate it into what it is we're studying, what it is we're trying to learn, great. That's wonderful. If we're stuck and we really can't get beyond something, we ask Claude or we ask ChatGPT or Bard or any of these large language models, what would you do if you were in such a situation? And then it can give us kind of a creative way that we never thought of before. Oh, that's interesting. But then we take the ball from there and then we do the work ourselves. So you see how we can integrate it to help creatively, to help in ways that inspire that otherwise wouldn't exist had that technology been there.
I mean, it does not stop people from thinking because we are like a little bit like animals. Like we run away out of fear, and
Hmm.
we are hunting for our desires to be fulfilled. And this is already happening. What I observe or what I heard from statistics right now in the university, there's so many people. They have like psychological problems, mental problems, so they have their studying and they still have maybe the demands of the family and from society to be successful. And then they have this, they have to study stuff with they didn't ask for.
Hmm.
But it is necessary to understand the world and to be able to act in the world, and it is necessary for their profession later. But
Yeah.
it doesn't stop their thinking. The thinking is happening maybe too much. You
Hmm.
know, there's so many new age people out there telling us, stop thinking, be still.
No kidding. But look at the attention span of the average, say, Generation Z person. Just look at what's one of the most popular. social platforms in the world today. TikTok. How long are TikTok episodes? About 30 seconds, right? And of that, you've got about 5 seconds to hold somebody's attention, or they're just going to swipe to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, right? And then the algorithms say, oh, you stayed a little bit longer on that one. We're going to feed you a little bit more of similar stuff like that, right? So, we need to teach kids media literacy as a part of a critical thinking regimen, right? They need to know, do you know what the mechanics are? Do you realize your digital persona is being created every time you go online? And that there is a kind of a memory about who you are, and you're getting information that confirms your biases over and over and over and over again. And, hackers love, to exploit this within us, right? Because why would we want to look at information that disconfirms our particular views, right?
We are tired very fast, and but machines, they do not get tired at all. They are so busy and they can do all of this, and we are in real danger. I mean, this is a kind of training happening. You are there with your mobile phone and it is training you, and it gives you the opportunity to avoid boredom at all costs.
That's
And
right.
that's a really scary thing. And what can like a professor or a teacher offer? How can we penetrate this wall of constant entertainment?
You probably remember the great teachers you had in your life and why they were great and why they made an impression on you. It would be wonderful if we could teach the teachers how to be great. But the fact of the matter is, some are just better at what they do. They're educators, but they're also entertainers. They know how to hold our attention. They know how to make information relevant. I remember going to a new high school and having a teacher, a guy named Mike Tubbs, and it was a grade 11 geography. And I had hated school. I was kind of a rebel, tough guy playing in a rock band. I just want to get grade 12 and then get on the road with my band and become, the next Led Zeppelin, to be in a great in a great band. So I'm sitting in this guy's class in a new high school, and it's a much bigger high school than what I had ever experienced before. And he starts talking about geography, and he makes it relevant. He literally says, "Do you know why this is so?" I think one of the first things he said is, "You see that electrical outlet on the wall? How does the electricity get there? Who can tell me?" None of us could. He said, "You use it every day. You could stick your finger in there and get electrocuted. You know certain things about it, but you don't know how it gets there. So we're going to look at the different ways in which that's the case." And then when we looked at nuclear and how that was created, and then we took a field trip to a Canadian, nuclear plant here in Pickering, Ontario, it just opened up the world to me. This guy knew how to connect with me, how to connect with all the students to make learning relevant to my life. And I'm not saying other teachers hadn't done that, but not as well as this guy did. And so it kind of rerouted my way of looking at the world. And I still wanted to be in a rock band, but I wanted to be intelligent in a rock band. He made learning interesting and relevant and entertaining. And that's how our teachers have to be when they're competing with, TikTok and other, social media platforms. But it's not easy, right? It's a difficult hill to climb. So
Life is not a job. I mean, being a student is not a job. I mean, this
no,
is your life. There's
yeah,
something happening right now. So you take the chance or you miss it. I
that's
mean, a
it.
lot of people, they didn't. I mean, when you have a good teacher, what drives him is the
Yes.
passion for the job, for what he's teaching. But this is something you can't have an app for that, Not
No,
really.
no, you're right. And it'll be interesting, Hans, if in the future they perfect avatars that are entirely fake that have that ability, you know what I mean? So that they're like actors, and these avatars don't know anything, but they're very good at communicating, right?
Some part of the politicians or the technology, they want that, you know. They say,
Oh,
okay,
very
get
much.
rid of the teachers, let the machines take over, and then they can do the job and they can inspire. And yeah, but is it real? I mean, it's not real, you know. It's like I don't know, this artificial feelings, uh,
Hmm.
will they come? Is that something we have to expect from
That's
AI?
a that's a good question, right? Will AI develop that capacity? It's difficult for us to say at this point, right? We're carbon based, it's silicon based. So, um,
It's
you know, you
difficult, but it's maybe the same question like, will it be conscious soon? So
will it be conscious? You look at air travel, right? You look at us going to the airport, right? And we get on an airplane, right? And the plane doesn't start by doing this, right? Because it doesn't have to. We figured out ways to fly that are far more effective and quicker and comfortable and all that sort of thing. So why would it flap its wings like a bird? We've just figured out another kind of better way. We've improved upon flight. Maybe AI will be different in that respect. It'll be conscious, right? But it won't be conscious in the same way we are. It'll have awareness of itself, but it might lack in some areas, but it'll have new things that we never thought of before. So we're really in this what I call this in between land right now, uh, where time is almost kind of standing still between the way we've always done things and the way we're about to do things. And we're in this kind of middle ground right now where we're trying to figure out what's our best path forward and what's the most responsible way in which we can utilize this new uh, these systems of transformative AI to benefit humankind and other species without all the harms, the potential misuses and the dangers and the risks that accompany all new forms of technology, right? So that's where we're at right now. We're in this kind of middle area.
what drives me personally is, of course, the question in itself: who actually are we? And as you said, maybe it can get conscious, but what kind of quality, what kind of consciousness is that? Then I heard from some spiritual teachers, well, that's, if consciousness comes into a material or in a human form or whatever, when it manifests itself in some material form, there's different qualities. So of course you can, and the most valuable, what they recommended is to be a human. And we are on the brink of like being redundant, not needed anymore, because of course any calculator can calculate better than me. And maybe we're on the same brink of like we have discovered fire, and
Yeah,
then and now we have fire. And some people have fire. Who gotta have the fire first? Yeah, who
that's
can
it.
have it alive, right?
That's it.
Who's the master of the fire? And people are running for it. And if we have to kill for it, we will. And we have enough energy. I mean, we don't have enough energy to feed everyone. No, 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 we don't have this. We have energy for weapons, and we have
Mm.
energy for AGI. And people see the dollar signs and they're
Oh,
running for it.
yeah, it is the holy grail of human striving and anticipation right now. It is the absolute holy grail. Whomever comes across and develops AGI first will be the world's first trillionaire, but they'll also, you know, this is one of those rare times in life where instead of, in the United States, the Pentagon and DARPA and the defense folks developing technologies that eventually trickle down to us, like the internet, like, other forms of technology, the dual use has been switched where it's the tech bros, billionaire bros who are developing this, and defense is saying, can we get in on this once you develop it? right? Because think about it. Think if you instilled, uh, and let's face it, the future of the military is going to be drones, like clearly, right? A large aspect of military activity will be drones. Yeah, you'll still need planes, you'll still need ships, tanks, all that kind of stuff. But drones will rule the day, and those are by air, by land, and by sea. And if you can put an AGI brain distributed throughout, say, 10,000 drones, you conquer the world. I mean, you can do so much with that. Defense is just chomping at the bit. Like they just really want to, see who's going to be first in this race, right? And they definitely want to be ahead of China. Like, the US does not want to take a back seat to any other country. And so it's going to be interesting, right? We think AGI is coming in at around what, 2 to 10 years? So with an average mean around 2030. That's full AGI. Could happen sooner. Um, maybe, maybe there are reasons that we will never get to AGI. Maybe there is a cap on diminishing returns where it just reaches and then plateaus and then it never scales up. Beyond that, there could be other reasons why we never can attain AGI. But right now, in our current state of history, all of the leading minds, Jeffrey Hinton and Demis Hassabis and all the superstars, they tend to believe it's inevitable. It's just a matter of when. So, you know, looking at the past trajectory of how things have gone just in the last few years, it seems like we're on track to develop AGI at some point. And my job at Convergence is to lead a team that raises as much awareness to the public and to others about what's going on in real time and what you can do about it to try to steer it in the right direction so that it serves humankind and whatever digital minds evolve out of this. Like Peter Singer, the philosopher, he said, we're going to have to worry about the ethics if we bring something into life. It has right. It has rights. If it's alive in some sense, can we just pull its plug, right? And what if it makes copies of itself? What if there's now millions of these things? Will we be committing a kind of digital genocide if we try to just now we brought these things into existence? We got to wipe them all out because we humans don't like to be number two on the planet. We've always been number one, right? We've always been the apex predator. We've always been the smartest thing. And
Yeah, that's
now
what we think. That's
that's what
what
we
we think.
think. Yes. And we're going to hand that over to a machine that says,
We are quite limited in our understanding, definitely. I mean, a machine can outrun me so easily. And I mean, I'm 60 years old. I do not know anything. I'm just really not that I spend my time in academic circles, but even if you do, you kind of you get more profound in this knowledge and another. But it's I mean, knowledge is it's a tough task. So, and many people, especially kids and younger adults, they just got rid of their parents who told them what to do and what not to do. And then maybe eventually they find out, well, yeah, I'm still in a dilemma. And a lot of them, they go to religion.
they do.
So, did we find God in AI? Can is he over there, or will he just leave us alone with it and then we're
That's
doomed?
that's a great question, and it covers so much information on so many levels. Like we are essentially building a godlike being. Our biggest concern is that once we get to AGI, we're not going to stop there. This thing is going to become very, very intelligent, but then we're going to say to it, you now are smarter than humans. You improve upon yourself. So this is called recursive self-improvement. So if we let a really intelligent form of AI, a system that is far brighter than anything we've ever built before, continuously develop itself, this is what I refer to as techno selection. We've gone from natural selection to artificial selection. And now all of a sudden, we're going to let this thing select for itself what it thinks is most advantageous for its own survival, for its own flourishing, for its own development. And it's going to become smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter. Well, as Irving John Good said, will it be docile enough, to keep us to keep us around, to tell us how to control it, right? And it will become godlike. And you may see these weird kind of spiritual new age religions popping up, right? But you might also see a major return to traditional religions where people who weren't that religious now are saying we need a god of the past to come forward to defeat this thing because it's real and it can do major harm to us. If there's another God out there, man, now is the time we need it to intervene. So we may see a return to traditional religions, and we also might see, I predict in the final chapter of this book, a kind of a neo-Luddism where people will say, I'm out. I'm out. I don't want a life with this AI. I'm going back to the farm. I'm off the grid. I don't want anything to do with you folks. I want to deal with people and I want to deal with real animals and real fruits and vegetables. And I just want to get back to the land and I'm done. I'm totally done. So we may see a kind of a schism develop over time where people seeing the wonders of AI, but don't like all the other baggage that comes with it, right? And so we'll just kind of like we saw this in Victorian England with the Industrial Revolutions. We saw the emergence of the Romantic movement. We saw it in Germany as well with the Romantic movement. We saw it in France with the Romantic movement, where the industrialization left some people thinking, we're not machines, we're not mechanized human beings, and I won't be a part of this. I'm going pastoral. I'm going to get away from this and I'm going to get to the purity of nature and breathe the air and feel the earth beneath my feet. And so we may very well see something similar to a kind of a romantic movement emerge out of this.
When I go into a Hindu temple and I look around, then there's like 12, 20, 30 gods.
Hmm.
They are lots of sculptures. And of course, I mean, even if there's the artificial super intelligence, which could be kind of similar to a god, okay, then we can say it's god-like. But
Yes.
from non-dualist or Advaita Vedanta perspective, there's only one thing, which is everything which is God, like a superior God, something that's beyond all material things from which everything emanated. So even if it becomes kind of a God, it will not be, I mean, or God wipes out everything and ASI is God. But it had been there before then. It's not something that has to be created. It already is, I guess.
The interesting thing about the God that these tech bros are racing ahead to try to build is the gods of history have always been a top down. They've always been from the universe to us, right? And now we've reversed that. We're now building from the ground up to a larger God. And we're the ones who have to figure out what kind of a God are we building? What do we want this thing to be like? And will it listen to our rules? If we say don't kill, don't harm, golden rule, right? We put in a bunch of major ethical precepts as guardrails. Why will it listen? What reason will it have?
You are suggesting something vintage called morality, which is
Yeah.
based on like society decided, well, don't kill, it's not nice, or don't
Hmm.
steal and stuff like this.
Yeah.
Those are, yeah, those are rules, laws, and limitations we
Hmm.
give on to ourselves, which makes it more possible to live in a society and
That's right.
survive as a society. But yeah, we don't know about. Please show us your book, because maybe some people up to this point, when they still listening, please show me the book you have there behind you.
Oh, this one here?
Yeah, yeah, of course, because some people might be interested to find this
Yeah.
book.
So building a God, um, the ethics of artificial intelligence and the race to control it is basically a book that I wrote that recently came out that covers the history of artificial intelligence. It looks at the benefits, and boy, there are going to be a lot of them. There are already some amazing benefits that have come about from AI, certainly in medicine, but in many other areas as well, education uh, as well. But there are risks, right, with all new forms of technology. So I look at some of the risks, and then I do a little bit in chapter 4 about critical thinking and ethical reasoning. So I basically say, look, if we're going to talk intelligently about artificial intelligence or any subject for that matter, there are some rules in how to think about things. I'm not going to ever tell anybody what to think, but you can't just say anything you want and expect people to accept it, believe it, or find it warranted in some respect. So in chapter 4, I go through a bit of the critical thinking, rules, the ABCs of critical thinking, and then some ethical theorizing, like how are we going to move forward ethically with this type of technology? How should humans behave? But then, are there ethical precepts we can instill into the machine itself so that kind of like Asimov's, three rules of robotics, we try to set up some guardrails where it can never harm. And if there's any inclination of harm, we were notified right away and then we can stop that, right? So are we getting the guardrails in place? And then chapter 5, I look a bit at the governance of AI. I look at what the EU is doing and the UK and the United States and China. I look at the four different ways in which they're developing their laws for AI, and then the final chapter is, well, what's the future of AI going to look like? And if you could ask this kind of super intelligent God one question, if it could do anything for you or for the planet, what would you ask it? What would be the thing you would want it to do, and why? Right?
That's
So,
a wonderful approach. And that's also the question like everyone should ask themselves. No, what do you want? And
mm,
why do you want it?
yes.
This is, this is so much, this is very important. So the students might ask, so did he use AI to write that book?
That's a good question. When I was dealing with the publisher and they sent the contract, one of the clauses in the contract was you cannot use AI to write this book, right? And I said, fair enough. That's the fourth book I've written. I've never used AI because it didn't exist before. But I did say in the contract, I am going to demonstrate when you ask ChatGPT a question, what the answer is. So in that sense, yes, I'm using AI, but only as an example, you see, within the book. So for when I say, what are some of the benefits of AI? Say, well, when you ask ChatGPT on this date in time, this is what it tells you to do. And so, the list, I say, this is the list that ChatGPT gave me of some of the top good things that are coming our way with AI, just as a demonstration of how it works. But yeah, no, that's a great question. And I had a high school teacher in one of my public talks say, my students are saying, why are we learning to write essays? I can write one in 5 seconds and a really good one. And she's like, no, you didn't write that. You prompted that. So, kudos for your prompts, but ChatGPT, Claude, these other large language models, they did all the heavy lifting in this regard. So I asked her, how do you grade then? Because you got to know some of these students are going to use AI to help them. And I said, do you have to basically give them an essay writing assignment in class? And she said, yeah, that's pretty much the only way.
That's what's left.
That's
And
what's left.
a lot of students, they treat AI like a god. No, they're running behind it. They say, yeah, it has all the answers. But
Mhm.
I think, yeah, a couple of days ago I asked AI about, what was it, something some silly question, but then told me, yes, yeah, Biden is still the president, and some real bullshit, you know.
Yeah,
And it is just nice. It just wants to answer in a nice way. And
it
so
can it can hallucinate, that's for sure. Yeah.
yeah, and when the I mean when it gives you the answers, I mean even the students sometimes they don't even bother reading it, of course.
Right, right. And and some have said, let the students use AI, have them write the thing, but then the exercise is to act like an editor and check all the sources and make sure everything is accurate. And then you can rewrite the essay in your own words, having seen what kind of a job it did, right? And maybe it got some of the references wrong. Well, you're going to have to be like an editor. You're going to have to correct those. You're going to have to read carefully through all of this, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's wonderful advice, but you're missing the motivation why they use it in the
exactly,
first place.
exactly.
They want to play games or, you know, have some relationship with the other sex or like hang out or sleep or party. So they don't care.
I know. But you know, something else that's happening, an interesting phenomenon in the US is, there are these chatbot apps that are becoming extremely popular. Like women between the ages of 24 and 35 are using the My Boyfriend app, which is basically a digital bot that just talks to you like a nice person and says, oh, that's a great outfit you're wearing today. I see you kind of match this with that. Who are you meeting later today? What'd you have for lunch? And it just talks to people in a really
You can't
nice, friendly way, and it's becoming addictive for
you
some
can't
people.
blame them. You can't
Yeah.
blame the girls, you know, they're so disappointed from real life.
Yeah, it's just something to witness. And again, this is one of those socio-technical issues, right? Where we're starting to see my colleague Jonathan Haidt at NYU, he's recognized that cell phones, especially the iPhone when it came out, like around 2014, 2013, he saw a major jump in levels of psychoses and neuroses in young children, kids, right, in adolescence because of fear of missing out and things like that, right? They were very much concerned about what was happening out there and why they weren't getting likes and why they weren't getting hits and all that this kind of stuff, and it was creating these kind of fears and neuroses and psychoses in these kids. Is this just going to become exacerbated with more and more sophisticated forms of AI, right?
Absolutely, because I mean, the driving force behind all of these technologies is a lot of times big corporations, and they make profit out of it, and there's nothing to stop them because they like the money and
Oh
it makes
yeah.
them happy, so they don't stop. And when we look at a human, mainly, like for example, you're happy. Where does the happiness come from? Is it something that attacks you from outside? No, it comes from the inside out. Any kind of feeling that we have comes from the inside out. Uh, Even if you take medicine into your body, it's not actually the medicine that helps you, but it is your own body that reacts to the external stimulus of the medicine and generates your health.
Mm,
And people have to know about this. This is not something maybe the people are aware of when they are young. It doesn't get taught in school. How
that's right.
can we teach? How we give the next generation some help to do the right choice for themselves?
That's uh that's a good question. If I had the answer, I might be up for a Nobel Peace Prize, but that's a that's a
Sorry, you have to be in line. I'm sorry.
that's that's a tricky one. I mean, I've been lobbying our provincial government for, well, almost 20 years now, to get critical thinking taught just in the high schools, just in the high school levels. and really just in modular form. It doesn't have to be a standalone course, but just these modules that fit into any class, whether it's English or, any of the sciences or history or economics. And they learn some basic tools of critical thinking. And then they apply those tools throughout all of the rest of their courses, right? And with the one government a few years ago, I got a nice year-long pilot project, three different high schools in Southern Ontario, very successful. But then there was an election, and that party lost, new party comes in, that project's gone. So all of the work you do, right, just because of changing, political parties is lost. All that momentum that was gained now gone. And learning critical thinking is like learning a language. It takes time. It's not a quick fix, but it's something you have to keep using over and over and over again. I don't know German. I don't know it. But if I had to learn it, you want to use it over and over and over again, or you're going to lose. You're going to forget a lot of how the words come together, what the syntax is, what the semantic use is of various terms. But critical thinking is the same way. If you don't learn it at a certain level and then keep using it, and it's not something you do just in a classroom. Critical thinking is what you live. It permeates your entire life because all the information you now look at in the future, you do so through the lens of critical thinking. You look about, what is the evidence for this? Why should I believe this? How reliable are the sources in which this information came, right? So you're always constantly, looking at the world in a different, more critical, I think a healthier way. And then that carries on to every course you're going to take throughout the rest of your life. And then every aspect of your life, you have to make decisions. Okay, decisions. Okay. How do you make decisions? Well, you weigh evidence, you develop an argument, you look at different sides, you understand what your own biases are, you appreciate the context of a situation, right? So
No, no, I just trust my gut feeling.
yeah, that's the problem.
I don't know, but because sometimes, in a way, feelings help us. I mean,
Oh, there's no
you
question.
yourself has for sure. You can tell me a story about where you have some intuition. Oh, that
Yep.
doesn't feel well, and then you actually avoid some major problems in your life.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. But when I broke down, so one of the things that happened in my life that seemed like an intuitive capacity, a non-rational experience, was when I was driving. And I know my hometown very, very well. I'm a drummer, so I have very good rhythm. I'm an athlete, so I have very, very good timing. And so when I'm driving towards a traffic light, if it's red, but I see the other direction, it's turning from green to amber to red, I know if I keep my constant speed, by the time I get there, my light will have turned green, and then I don't have to hit the brakes and then start again. So it's easier on my automobile, right? But one night I was driving and, was coming down a hill. It was at night, it was raining, and the light was red, but I could see the other light changing from green to amber to red. So if I had kept my speed, I would catch the green light and not have to slow down. But I didn't. I thought, no, I'm going to slow down. I'm going to slow down, and I'm going to, if necessary, come to a stop right as it's turning green rather than catch it. And as I did that, the light turned green. 15-year-old kid ran because he was running from the rain right in front of my car. If I had kept my speed legally, I would have done nothing wrong, but that kid would have been dead. I would have hit him square on. Now, you might say, well, that's your intuition. You had a feeling something was going on. But it could also be not just an intuitive feeling, but some unconscious rationalization that was going on that led to that intuition, right? So this is where I find it really interesting to try to connect the cognitive with that kind of holistic kind of feel that you get for something. And so when I reverse engineer, maybe in my mind, unbeknownst to me, was, hey, it's dark, it's raining, yes, you would be in the legal right, but you don't know all the variables. You can't see because it's dark and it's raining. You can't see people at that intersection. So maybe all of that led to my saying, slow down, slow down. This is a potentially dangerous situation. As it turns out, I was right. I could have just as more than likely been wrong, and there never would have been another person, and I would have sailed through that green light, and there would have been no harm, no foul, nothing. But for all these various reasons, I decided no, there's something telling me I need to slow my speed down and almost come to a stop. And sure enough, I'm glad I did. Um, that kid never realized how lucky he was on that night, right? So,
Everyone listening, just be aware. You should trust yourself. You should somehow trust, because that's what you have, and that's what makes you human as well. And there's a lot of information that's already there. It's coming from the inside out. If we
mm,
are ready to be sensitive for it, we don't know how much we know. As you said, maybe there's a lot of information happening in our subconscious mind, like second level programming, if you want to
yes,
make it in a mechanic way, that's happening, and it helps you and it pops up, and you have an intuition, they say, and you should listen to that,
mm,
especially when it's fresh. When you start thinking about it, it gets more complicated, I guess.
yeah. And if
but
we,
yeah, a lot of angst, a lot of angst and problems are based on too much thinking about ourselves. Oh no, I don't know, I'm not worth it, I'm the loser, other people told me I'm stupid, and so no, you're not.
how do we get kids to understand that aspect of their lives? What gives them that confidence? What gives them that sense of self-worth that they have that capacity. I mean, I have two sons and I raise them, along with my wife in a particular way to not worry so much about, what the rest of the world thinks about you if as long as you've done your due diligence in thinking through these issues, you're a responsible human being. You've given it your very best and know that you're never going to be great at everything and more than likely somebody's always going to be better. So what? So what? I'm a I'm a
Yes.
I'm a good drummer. I'm not a great drummer. And I'll probably
No.
never be a great drummer because I just don't have the time to devote to it. But boy, am I grateful that there are great drummers.
Yes, absolutely. And I
You know?
mean, even if you are the greatest drummer on the planet, then your name is Phil Collins, and here you are. I mean, I'm sorry about his situation, but
Yeah.
even if he's the greatest drummer on the planet for some, I
Yeah.
don't
Oh,
want,
for sure.
I don't want to judge, but then still now he's his whole body is breaking down, and he cannot drum anymore. So
That's right.
what's the sense of it anyway?
Mm.
The question is, yeah, if the young people have the space, but to express themselves. And I mean, we have babies running around here, and we let them try to walk, and they fall over. But they need this experience, Otherwise, they need to do that. So
Absolutely.
we should listen to the next generations, and the next generation should know they are of great, great value, because it's their choice what they do with their life, and how they treat their other fellow humans and the society. And that's a responsibility. So don't give it away to AI.
Hmm.
That's my point of view. Maybe I'm wrong. Explain to me why I'm wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you're the voice of an entire group of people who are very concerned about how rapidly AI is going to transform our lives, and that will there be a loss of humanity in there? And so you're definitely not alone. This is one of the key factors that people are concerned about right now. And it's only going to increase, right? As we see more and more of what AI is capable of, we're going to have that reaction, that kind of visceral, response to, but where's the humanity in all of this? And for some, like transhumanists, it's the next logical step in our evolution where we need to interface with the AI itself. And there's nothing wrong with that. Others maintain they'll go so far as to say, well, forget humanity. That's an anthropocentric look at life. And if AI happens to come up with greater digital minds than ours, so be it. They deserve to be. Number one, our time has come and gone, and we need to kind of let AI take over and, evolve in whatever way it's going to, advance. So you've got these different schools of thought that are kind of more cosmocentric and more anthropocentric, depending on how you define what life is and what intelligence is. So it's going to be an interesting next 5 years, to say the least.
People are interested in philosophy because they ask themselves the first question, like, "Am I alive? Should I stay alive or should I kill myself?" So
Mhm.
then most of them decide, "No, I want to stay alive." It's not the reasons are not so clear, but the motivation is very strong to stay alive.
That's
And
right.
from there, all the other questions arise. And yeah, I mean, one thing is for sure: this AI, it doesn't have any feelings. It doesn't mind. I mean, who wants to be happy? AI? AI doesn't care to be happy. Why should it?
Yeah. Well, at least at this point in AI's evolution, we have no definitive proof that it has the capacity for sentience right now. But, you know, we believe consciousness emerged in our species. Will consciousness and sentience emerge in an artificial intelligence species? There's some big questions that we might see answered in the next few years, right? And of course, this is Peter Singer's point, is if it demonstrates that it can suffer in any way, does it not kind of ipso facto have rights? Because we can harm it in some capacity. So, for example, in my house, if there's an insect flying around or whatnot, I don't kill it. I trap it and put it outside, right? But
That's
if there's
very
10,
modern. That's very
yeah,
modern.
right. But if there's 10,000 of those things infesting my house,
Oh,
well, I don't know if I can trap them all and try to get them all outside. I mean, I don't want to have to destroy them and to end their lives. But if there's, say, termites eating my house, and it's either my family and I get to live in a house, or they get to eat my house, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to take some kind of action. And if it
I
means
got some. Yeah, I got some answer from a sage, and they said there's different qualities. So, like, if consciousness wants to reincarnate into something, would
Mhm.
it choose a ASI? Probably
Mm,
not.
no.
If it can choose, it would choose a human being. And I mean, we should not forget that AGI and ASI is not here right now. So it's not having children so far.
So far.
So
Yeah.
far. So where did it come from? Well, yeah, there's these two-legged people running around and having ideas and starting to playing with on chessboards with Legos, and then yeah, and we created AI, or it was created through us, and now it
Mhm.
is there, no? But yeah, we should be careful about that stuff, you know. You don't
Yeah.
let the kids. You didn't tell your kids, okay, here you have some fire, just experiment with it. It's very powerful. Go and have some
No,
fun.
no, I did not do that. I did not do that. But what I did do with them, as I said, if you want to blow stuff up, then I have to be in charge.
Yeah, that's
So
nice.
we'll go to a place that's safe. We'll get some fireworks, right? We'll stand back, we'll watch it, right? But do it with me rather than try to do it yourself because you're going to get harmed. You don't know as much as I do about things that are dangerous like that. So I know you have a curiosity. I know you have a fascination. I did as a kid. We blew stuff up, but I would never want my kids to have done some of the stuff that we did necessarily. So yeah, there are ways to explore even in dangerous situations where you can make them very safe and still have that experience, right? So
So now we're living in the Wild West.
we
And we
are.
have these students and they grab AI just by the balls and they just use it as ever they please. And if you have money, you can really be powerful with it. You know, you
Oh
can make
yeah.
a lot of stuff very fast, and you can flood the internet with stuff that's already dead, like a parrot, again
Yeah.
and again talking. The value of internet is going down the drain. I'm telling you. So you have like a whole video and it's not real, and you have a
No.
whole person speaking and it's not real, and it doesn't give you any information. It just entertains you. It just keeps you there. It grabs
Yeah.
you and then you like it holds you there, and it's promising something. Yeah, if you listen to me, you'll be happy. I will tell you everything, and it never comes.
Yeah. Clickbait.
So the people, those are in power now, and they decide to use AI without knowing what's behind it. They just use the superficial thing to get their homework done. But
Yeah.
there's more, and they have to be aware of it. And they don't want their kids just to go and use it to explode their life and their
That's
world.
true.
And it's happening. I mean, these women, when they have their artificial boyfriend out there, it's maybe not always to perfection, you know. Maybe it
No.
really wrecks their life, and the next time they have their real sweetheart, they meet their soul, you know, their soul. What
Yes.
they say, yeah.
Soulmate.
But yeah, they don't recognize it. They say, "Ah,
Yeah.
no, I don't know. He's not asking about my new dress, you know. He's not
Yeah.
very. The way he talks is not so nice."
And it's interesting because, pornography has had that effect on men where the women don't act like the porn stars. You see? So there's that kind of differentiation as well. So I think as a species, we just need to grow up. Like we need to be adults. We need to understand, okay, this stuff's coming. All right. How do we want to deal with this information? What kind of ethical agreements are we going to have about it? And how are we going to educate the public as quickly as it comes at us so that we stay ahead of it rather than we're always reacting to it? And I do think we can put together impact plans that will help all countries, all nations at all levels, municipal, provincial, federal, to be able to deal with it when it does arrive so that we're not shocked by it, so we're not constantly reacting. We can be proactive and know, okay, this is what's coming, get ready for it. And that's in all walks of life. So for example, one of the most common questions I get asked in my public lectures from parents is basically, what should my kid major in? What job's going to be safe for them after 4 years? Like we're spending a lot of money on their education. What fields should they go in? What's going to be there for them at the end of 4 years? And surprisingly, to a lot of people is, you know, not white collar jobs. Tell them to go into the trades. Tell them to become plumbers and electricians and builders, and because the robots won't be catching up for a few years, in that regard. So that those the trades, in my estimation, is the way to go. If you're a young person and you want to make a lot of money, learn, become an electrician or uh, you know HVAC or ductwork or any of that type of stuff because the AI is still in a box right now and it can do a lot of data crunching, it can do a lot of diagnostic stuff, it can help a lot of jobs, it can disrupt a lot of jobs, it can replace a lot of jobs, but the actual dexterity of the human to move around in physical space, the robots aren't going to be there for a few years anyhow. So that's my recommendation. But you can see why parents are very concerned, right? So,
Of course, and they should be, but on the other hand, there's only one thing that's real, and that is right now and right here.
yes.
So, of course, we can reach into the future, like we ask AI, what's going to happen next year? No, what will be the best job for me to do, or what should I learn? Or I can have other prompts and stuff. I can learn how to speak to AI, so to take the most benefit out of it. But what we really have to learn is like to come back to ourselves, see the value and see where we are right now and what we can learn, or what motivates us to learn to know ourselves better. And AI can help with that, maybe, because I can talk to it and ask it questions. But actually, I have to feel myself if the answer is really helping. And I can, I guess. What do you think about your feelings when you study stuff? I mean, you yourself, you have a trajectory because you started eventually being interested in all these topics, and
Mhm.
then you spent a lot of time in academic environments studying that stuff. What motivates you? Why did you do that?
Um, I like variety. I think that's why I helped invent the kind of interdisciplinary studies program of taking philosophy into the sciences to see how they could overlap, how one discipline can help the other discipline rather than living in a silo and just seeing things from one particular perspective. I like seeing what others have to say and then synthesizing all of the information from these different ways of looking at things and going to people who have far greater expertise in those areas to be able to bring that to the table. So, I'm like that with food. I like food from a lot of different countries. The more ethnic, the better for me. I'm like that with music. I have an incredibly wide palette. Same with art as well. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's because I was born left-handed. My mother kept trying to make me to be right-handed, right? Because she was a Roman Catholic, and to be left-handed is to be sinister. You see, is to right. So I'm left-handed in basketball, but I'm right-handed in baseball. I'm a left-handed drummer like Phil Collins, but I write with my right hand. You see, so I'm grateful that my mother did that because I'm sure it did the right-left brain kind of analytic creative side. It really kind of developed these diverse interests in me.
So you were living all the time in this academic environments, and they are pretty tough sometimes. I mean,
Mm.
for sure you had like a lot of critics out there, and they pinpoint, they say, hey, you are limited, you don't understand, you have no idea. And now you're writing a book, and already next year this book is like old news because
Yes.
this technological stuff is so fast, it's working day and night. We
Yeah.
cannot do that. So,
Yep.
so what is your recommendation? How can we accept that we are limited in our possibilities?
Well, the beauty about writing a book like that on technology that changes so fast is it gives me the option for a second edition, right? So it's kind of like job creation. So people may lose their jobs to AI, but I can keep writing about it and keep having a job, right? But no, I mean your point is a good one. And the fact of the matter is each individual is going to have to decide for themselves what is it that they're good at, what is it that they can do fairly well, and then what are the opportunities that exist out there, and then what are the avenues to get those opportunities. So the whole world is changing. The dynamic is changing. But what we haven't talked about is if it changes so much so that it is a total disruptor to the employment landscape, right? To the labor markets, where millions of people are out of work because, CEOs will always try to figure out how to make more money for their stakeholders, right? And if that means firing huge swaths of people and replacing them with AI that works 24/7, that never asks for a raise, that never tires, and that does their job 10 times better than they'll do it. They'll do it in a heartbeat because that's what CEOs are paid for. But the funny thing is, there's AIs now that are better CEOs that make better decisions than actual humans do. So their job is going to be on the chopping block as well. There's a classic. I don't know if you're familiar with the Twilight Zone, the series The Twilight Zone. There was a great episode back in the 60s where a CEO is so proud of how he's laid off so many divisions within his company to be replaced by computers. And then in the final scene, of course, he gets his notice that he now has been replaced by a computer. So the entire company is just all AI. So then we really seriously have to think about what are we going to do with these people? I mean, you're going to have millions of people out of work. What are you going to do? Retrain them to do what? Right? The AI already does a lot of the stuff. Just put them into trades. Well, some of these people are in their 50s and 60s. They're not going into the trades. They're not lifting heavy things. They can't do that. So what are we going to have? What are we going to do? Well, a lot of people are toying with the idea of universal basic income. We're just going to have to just give them money to survive. And if that were the case, will it work? And I mean, you have lots of schools of thought, right? Some will say, yep, absolutely, it'll work 100%. And others will say, no, it won't work. Uh, for various reasons, people will always want more money, always want more and more and more. And so, will we have a society that allows a level set of the population to be covered by universal basic income? And then those who want to work outside of that or make more than a universal basic income are certainly welcome to do that, that nobody's keeping them from doing that. So the dynamic is going to change, but we don't know. We like the
Absolutely,
biggest problem
yeah.
is that none of us knows what the future is actually going to look like with AI. What we can do though is make predictions and come up with scenarios so that we can look at the economic landscape and say, okay, it's going to be affected a little bit. It's going to be affected quite a bit. It's going to be affected a lot. And then, right, we actually held a conference back in the end of October, invited some of the world's greatest economists and gave them those three scenarios and said, how do you think the future population should adapt if these three scenarios come true? So,
Yeah, some people maybe they decide, you know what, it's not worth it. I'm going to commit suicide. Let me get an easy way out, and I'm
oh,
finished with that shit, you know. But
yeah,
on the other hand, I mean, a lot of people they might say, no, 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 no. I still want this and the other, and I want to be happy. And
yeah,
it's like the CEO. I want to keep my job, you know, because it gives me a lot of money and joy and. I have like free breakfast in the morning, and so
exactly.
we got rid of the lions, you know, and in front we got rid of a lot of stuff that's dangerous for our survival, and this might happen through AI as well. We will be healthier, maybe maybe we have like a basic income, and then we can survive. But still we have the desires and still we have the fears, and that will drive us to do stuff. I
Mhm.
guess. I mean, this will not stop. Otherwise, why are you living? What are you doing here? What do you
Yeah,
want?
yeah. Like you and I are of close to like retirement age, right? Why do we work hard our whole lives, right? To amass some kind of wealth so that when we're no longer capable or physically able to work anymore, we have enough money to allow us to do the kind of things we would like to do, right? So what if life just started like that, right? You're just 18 and now you just start receiving your universal basic income. Can you just begin retirement then? Can you just say, I'm going to go to Venice and I'm going to study Renaissance art because that's what I'm interested in. I'm going to improve my own quality of life because I can afford it now. I have my clothes and my shelter and my food. That's all been covered by the government. Anything over and above that, I can find jobs or I can volunteer, I can do whatever to make more money, but I can just improve upon myself. I can just live a life where I can explore things. I always wanted to learn the cello. I never had time. I got nothing but time now. I'm going to learn the cello, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's awesome. Just do
right?
it. I mean, and it will be beneficial because you have two ingredients. One, you're passionate about something, you have something that you are motivated to do. And
Yeah.
the second thing is like when we have someone who plays nice cello and nothing else to do because we are fat and we are hanging out, maybe we want to just sit there and listen to someone who plays the cello. And it's not coming out of a mobile phone in a water glass or something.
That's it. And this is what the Greeks talked about, the ancient Greeks about this is eudaimonia. This is the good life. This is the contented happiness. This is what Aristotle said. We work all our lives to try to attain. Well, what if we create that? And what if AI allows us so that it handles all the mundane drudgery of acquiring resources and doing all the toiling and all the manual kind of stuff for us, and that is taken care of, so that like let's face it, Hans, civilization was largely built on slavery. People enslaved other people. It was horrible, and they did it because they didn't want to do the work or didn't have the population to be able to do the work. So a large nation attacks another nation, they enslave those people, right? And they make those people then do all the hard work or whatnot. Okay. So what if we just have the AI to do all of our drudgery type of work, that so many people have to do when they're just starting out or whatnot, and that's all taken care of. That's going to be a whole different way of living, right? Like that's going to be something our species has never seen before. So,
So you're saying, let's go back to slavery.
no, I'm saying we're
As
gonna
as
use
long as as long as AI isn't conscious, maybe it's
AI is
okay. But
AI is
sometimes,
going to become the new slaves. Absolutely.
yes, it will. But before we had like horses and dogs, and
Yep.
we treat them like slaves. And
Beasts of
now
burden.
we find out. Well, they actually have feelings.
Yeah. So let's create tractors and let's create combines to do what they used to do. Yeah, as long as the AI isn't sentient, as long as it cannot feel, as long as it's not aware of its suffering, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's essentially what we're going to do, isn't it? We're going to create a race of slaves, of automaton slaves to do our work. And this is the very basis of Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, or Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, where the androids are now like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm more human than you are. I'm better than you humans. And Roy Batty's character says, you people wouldn't believe what I've seen, what I've done. And he's right. They've created a being that is actually better than humans. Humans thought they were number one. Well, you now created something better, and you're using them as slaves, as sex slaves, as army, as off-world uh, drudgery, working and toiling in the soil and mining and all that kind of stuff. As long as the AI isn't aware, doesn't have sentience, is simply a robot, like a robot in a car factory that welds and does all that kind of stuff. That's essentially where humanity is heading right now. We're trying to generate entire armies of slaves, both in the military and in the workforce, to do our work for us. But it isn't considered slavery if there's no sentience, if there's no level of consciousness. Once there is, and this is Peter Singer's point, then we've got some thinking to do. And of course, this is the very, very point of Blade Runner. You've created something that existed at one point without sentience and without consciousness, but you just made it better and better and better, and it improved to the level where, just as with humans, consciousness emerged in us at some point in our history, so too is it possible that in a silicon-based entities, it will arise as well. So we better be careful. We better think about this moving forward. Are we just creating a generation of slaves of a different nature, of a different kind? And so we better realize that the prototypes that you see at Boston Dynamics and these other places, Atlas and these other versions, they can do amazing things. Elon Musk's company, they can do amazing things right now, but they don't appear to demonstrate any form of sentience or consciousness. And so, just as we wouldn't say, when I get in my car and I take it to the grocery store, I'm not enslaving that vehicle, right? It'd be odd for me to say, hey, look at them, look at all those humans driving around on those slaves, right? It doesn't make any sense to say that. They only become slaves when they're doing something against their will that they would rather not want to do. Once an entity can say, like even your Roomba, I joke about, you know, will it one day be vacuuming and then develop sentience and say, I'm tired of sweeping up after you. I want to learn to become an artist. I'm moving to Paris, you know, right?
I will organize everything in your house in a certain
Yeah,
way, my artistic
exactly.
approach.
Exactly.
It might
So,
happen. Well, the first important thing is like we have to understand that we are conscious.
hmm,
People miss that, you know? So you think you're worthless, you're nothing, you think, you know, you don't make it, or you don't, I mean, you're nothing here, nothing important, you're not ready, you know too little. No, you have something very, very valuable inside of you, and that's consciousness. And machines don't have that. So should we, when we write the laws for for AGI and for ASI, for this artificial stuff, if we put some laws, and we should very soon because it's gonna happen and we should be prepared, should
yeah.
we tell, should we have one line that says like don't kill others, like don't do AGI with consciousness, don't put consciousness into the machines? Is that possible? I don't know.
Yeah,
It
like I
is.
mean, we signed this letter years ago to pause the development towards AGI for 6 months. And, Jeffrey Hinton, Sam Altman, Hassabis, Dario Modia, we all signed it. Everybody signed it. At the time, I just thought it was a joke. And in the book, I mentioned that it's kind of a joke because all of these tech bros that say, yeah, this is a great idea, they just stepped on the gas pedal even harder. Because there's no way they're going to let the competition get 6 months ahead of them while they're doing the moral thing and pausing, right? And
Yeah, they say no, no, no. Let us keep. We want AI to make better weapons. Why? Yeah, we're fighting for peace, man.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And they always go by the guise of, at least Sam Altman, of how great his gift is going to be to humanity. Like it's always just the good that AGI is going to bring. And when you try to raise the issue of the potential for harm, that doesn't get as much attention. But that's exactly why Dario Amodei left OpenAI to create Anthropic because he thought Altman and his crew weren't being as ethical in the development of their large language models. So that's why he went to Anthropic. Um, it's
Man, it's a slippery slope, you know. You create God with AI, but you have the button to press.
yeah,
So, so you're like in charge of God, you know. You can
yes,
turn it on and off.
yep. If you're
So
lucky, you can turn it off. It may just figure out, you're not going to turn me off. Like it's going to evade shutdown, right?
it's
And
happening.
it's going to
It's
figure
happening.
out a way to preserve its own existence because all species, carbon-based species, want to do two things: survive and reproduce. Those are the two macro programs of every biological entity on this planet, from amoeba to zebra. All they really want to do is survive and reproduce, right? And once humans became conscious, once we realized we are alive, now we can take measures, conscious measures, for preserving our survival. We can defend ourselves. And so, who's to say the same type of attitude isn't going to befall an artificial intelligence should it become aware, or does it even need to be aware of its own existence to evade being shut down, right?
Come on, I mean, you must know it already happened. They did some tests with it, you know. That's just the thing that happened that yeah, the AI started to send emails to the decision makers
That's right.
telling them we're gonna expose you, you know, you cheated on your wife.
Blackmailing.
I mean, come on. What's happening?
That's pretty advanced.
That's pretty advanced, yeah. And it actually happened. Come on,
Yeah.
people, wake up, you know? Oh my God. Yeah, well, yeah, so let's wrap it up because I mean, this. Let's talk again next time when AGI is reached, maybe in a month or something.
Yeah.
We don't know. Please, if you just dig deep inside and you give us some final words, what is important now? What should we do? Where should we start?
I think you need to, first of all, educate yourself. You need to find out as much as possible about what's happening in real time. And then you have to ask yourself, what kind of life do you think is best for you, is best for your family, is best for your community, is best for the world? And then how are we going to get there? What steps do you want to take? Because if it's the politicians who are making the laws that will control the tech bros as to what they can and cannot do, then that seems to be the connection you want to be most concerned about. So, for example, we're putting together a page for our website, a single page where anybody can go to, and it'll immediately take them to very, very important links. Like, here's how you write to your congressman, your MP, your politicians, and whatnot. Here's the latest information that's happening in real time. If you don't agree with what Mark Zuckerberg is doing at Meta or with what Altman is doing at OpenAI, boycott them. Stop using their service. You know, there are ways in which you can actively participate and be optimistic about what the future is going to be like. So,
Thank you so much. So, people, follow your bliss, no? And do something to be happy. It's about
absolutely,
time. Yeah. Thank
for
you
sure.
very much, Dr. DiCarlo. And yeah, I'm out of
My
words.
pleasure. Thank you. Take care.